sneak peeks. First sewing of 2022, and we start with a woven dress with gorgeous details. I've got two versions to share with you. You'll see some really interesting yokes and gathers, very cool neckline, some shirring. Stay tuned. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and we are hopping into 2022 with the first of all, thank you so much for your wonderful feedback on my roundup series. I see a lot of you liked the fact that I split them up into garment types. It's easier for you to look at them, and also I think it would be easier for you to find what you're looking for when you go back to these projects. Remember, I made a playlist with the 4 episodes there, the toppers, the tops, the bottoms, and the dresses. So I will leave that link down below if you haven't caught on yet. It's a really good resource for you because all the videos include sewing. So thank you so much. It was a lot of work, but knowing that you liked it makes it really worth it for me. Super excited to share the projects I've got for you today. For one of them, I was actually sewing it on the 1st of January. So one of them is actually the first make of the year. The other one I had made previously because it was a pattern test. I had it there waiting just when it was the right time to share. What I've got to share with you today is the Azores top and dress from Itch to Stitch. Now the Azores top and dress has the same pattern pieces actually if you want to make a top or a dress. The only difference is that the front and the back is longer or not. It looks like a peplum style. It comes in at the waist, a little bit of blousing going on, and the way that happens is with several rows of shirring. The sleeves are long. You also just have one sleeve piece, but then at the end you have several rows of shirring and then a little bit that comes out like that. Super pretty. The most original features and the ones that are mostly fun to sew here are the ones that you see in the front. You see that there are some corner details there. There is a front yoke that starts here and then goes over the bust, across horizontally and then down, and then you have a smaller horizontal seam underneath the bust around there. In the center you have a seam that is partially opened in a little slit here, and you have a butter loop to close it up on the top. Super pretty because you show a tiny bit of skin here on the upper chest, but you're not actually showing anything. At the back there is a yoke, and to make it different from other yokes, it's not straight, it's rounded. 2 layers finished really neatly with a burrito roll to enclose the back piece that is slightly wider and has gathers. So on the front and back pattern pieces there is a cut line there for you to cut the top. If you want to make that peplum longer, all you need to do is drop that cut line and add as much as you want on the same pattern piece, and then you just have a longer top. I'm showing you the beautiful version that Kenneth made in her red fabric. The way that she sews and fabric choices always show the details really well. Usually has to do with choosing solids. I think hers is gorgeous, and you can really see what's going on with the front yoke, with the back. She's made the top version. Again, the dress is all the exact sewing, it's just that the piece is longer. Because the Azores top and dress is a brand new pattern, it is 20% off during the first week. I will leave you the information in the description box, and also my affiliate link if you would like to use it to get this pattern. For sure, this is not a pattern that is going to take you 1 hour, but it is really stunning and really original. Nice details for you to hone in and concentrate, and you'll be super proud when you're done. Love projects like that. Of course, with woven and bust cup sizes, you can't go wrong with the feet. I really recommend every Itch to Stitch pattern I make because it's always just amazing. The instructions, the feet, everything's top notch. The dress is designed for woven fabrics, not for knit fabrics. You need a lightweight fabric that flows really nicely for this design to look really nice. Crepe, rayon types, rayon challis, rayon linen blend, 100% rayon, silk, georgette, chiffon, those types of fabrics are going to look marvelous. Stay away from the cottons because they are just going to look really bulky. With the shirring, with everything that's going on, the small gathers above the bust, you don't want anything too structured. Even if it is lightweight, I think any type of cotton won't look good. That's just my opinion. I've made 2. One of them is a really light poly crepe, very flowy, very light, and the other one is 100% rayon. You need some lightweight interfacing that doesn't stretch also, because the front pieces and the back yoke, one of those layers is interfaced, so that is the other type of notion you need. You also need some elastic for your shirring. I think 2 spools of 20 meters will be okay. I brought just enough to make the dress that I made. Just enough. I eyeballed it. I brought it from home. and I'm glad I did because I haven't found any to buy here. The sizing is great from 00 to 40. There are bust cup sizes from A through double D. Sizes 22 to 40 will have cup sizes from B to double D, and the fit is relaxed. This is not a fitted top. When you look at the pattern pieces, they don't seem to have much shaping on the waist. You know, compared from when you go from the bust to the hip, there's just a slight little curve there, and it's because all the shaping comes with the shirring that you have at the waist. There is a little bit of blousing going on. At the bust and the hips, you have about 9.5 to 10 inches of positive ease, and at the waist around 14. Remember, that will all come in with the shirring and it's going to look amazing. I made two versions and they are quite different. They are for two different people. I didn't sew just for me. The dress version I made for my sister-in-law. You've seen her before in a video where I made her a Tessa sheath dress. This time I made her an Azores dress, and I used all the original features, and actually the dress was part of the pattern test. When I look at her body measurements, she has a size 4, blending out to a 6 at the hips, but considering the amount of ease in this pattern, I thought if there was just one size different, I could just make a straight size 4, and I was perfectly fine with just a straight size 4 for her. She has an A cup. I measured her high bust, her full bust. I knew that an A cup was going to be good for her, and the fitting change I made for her, the only one, was to lengthen the skirt by 2 inches. When you look at the front and back patterns, there is a shorten and lengthen line. I just added a little bit there for her. I knew she needed that extra length, and I knew she wanted the dress to be right above the knee. She sort of likes it like I like it. For my version, I had picked a beautiful tropical rayon fabric. I found it in Chile actually. I thought I'd bought the right amount of fabric, but I was missing a tad. It wasn't not going to fit, so I just decided to make a top version for mine. Mine is a size 14 to 16. I did blend out for mine on the pattern piece. Other than that, mine is a top version. I knew I wanted mine longer, so I just dropped that cut line there, just added the same amount following that curve. I still needed to add at least 1.5 inches to account for my height for it to look as intended, and then let's say that 1.5 inches was the extra that I needed. So mine will hit the mid hip where I wanted it to be. I feel more comfortable like that. And it's not like I'm cheating, because you'll see a diagram in the pattern where it shows you how to do that. So it is something that you can do, you know. Let's hop into the sewing. I have dedicated the sewing footage to constructing this neckline. You have front and back yoke pieces. They are double. The external layer is the one that's interfaced. The internal one is the one that is not interfaced. I'm showing you how to put the center front of this neckline together. It is partially open, the button loop, and then you see that the front piece has a really specific shape, and there are corners to sew here and down there. So you see how to put all that together. So let's hop in and see the sewing of all this beautiful part of the Azores.
Do you think this is starting to wear on me? You've been raining down like hail. I'm weak.
These are the main pieces for the Azores top. Now this is for the top version. For the dress, it's just that the pieces are longer, but it's still the same. You can see that the front is cut on the fold. There is the fold right there. And there is a little piece missing from the center. You can see a little horizontal cut there, and then it goes up. That corner, I've used a bit of interfacing to stabilize that area, because that little corner will be snipped into later. This is the front yoke, and you can see that's going to fit into there. You can see how this is shorter than this area, because this area is going to be gathered into there. There are 2 of these pieces. 2 of them will be interfaced, and those will be the ones you'll see on the outside. And on the inside, you'll see the non-interfaced pieces. They are the same 2 sets. One set is interfaced, one set isn't. The back is cut on the fold. You can see the fold there, and there is a curved shape. This is the yoke. It's also curved, super pretty. The external yoke will be interfaced. The internal yoke will not be interfaced. The pattern piece that I'm missing here is the sleeve. It is a wider sleeve because it's got shirring towards the wrist. I'm not going to be doing a sleeve there, but you can imagine it. And around this area, you'll see some lines on the pattern where you mark where you'll do your shirring. There's also going to be a tiny piece where you make one little button loop that will go up there. Here I'm stay stitching the necklines. These are the center fronts that I interfaced. Stay stitching from the shoulder to the center front on both sides. And also the back yoke, this is the interfaced yoke. After doing that, then I have to repeat the same with these non-interfaced layers, all the same. Here I have the front and the back yokes pinned together at the shoulder seams. This is the non-interfaced set. That's the interface set, and there are the shoulder seams. I'm going to sew all these shoulder seams. All of the seam allowance is 1/2 inch, and I'll just press those seams open. I'll do that off camera. This is for the button loop. It's so tiny, and I have the tiniest safety pin, and it's going to work. This is the only piece of this garment where you sew it at a tiny seam allowance. All the rest is at 1/2 inch. It's a very small piece. Look at this, tiny. These are the front and back yoke pieces sewn with the shoulder seams pressed open. You don't need to finish these seams because they will be hidden inside. There will be 2 layers of these, so don't worry about those. Now here on this side you can see those 2 little lines, and this is the reference to mark where the button loop is going to go. So you can see that I've hand sewn that end of the button loop together so it stays there, and then there's the loop. So we are going to place this on the right side of the fabric, right there between those marks. Now I'm just going to sew that there so it stays there. Any of these basting stitches are smaller than 1/2 inch. That will be the final seam allowance here. Okay, here we have the front and back yoke, the ones that are not interfaced. Shoulder seams have been sewn. That's right sides up. And now we take our interface set. This is the one where we've just sewn on that button loop. It doesn't matter which side you sew it on. It won't really make a difference because there's no overlap, just preference. And now we place these right sides together. You have the same neckline here that's going to match. So we're going to match all this and sew it all like that up to there. Here I'm sewing this neckline, both the front and back yokes pinned together, the non-interface set and the interface set. It is quite a curved seam, 1/2 inch seam allowance. After finishing this, I'm going to trim the seam allowance down to half of this and snip everywhere because it's really curved. Here I wanted to show you, this is where this starts, and this pin you see here is me pushing this loop down to get it out of the way and not have the risk of getting it caught there in the seam. Here I'm just trimming this down. I think 1/2 inch is way too much to just leave it there, especially on a curved area like this, and after trimming I will snip. Now that this is snipped, we can open this and understitch. Because the non-interfaced one will be the one inside, that is the direction that the seam allowance is going to go to. The interface sides will be the ones that are outside visible because they're smoother and they're just going to look nicer. So I have my non-interface on the right hand and the seam allowance right under there, but we're not going to start from the very end. We'll start about 1 inch away from there. Over here also we're not going to understitch right to the end. We're going to finish a good inch away. Okay, now we are going to extend this and place it right sides together. So we have these long ends now right sides together. We've got the understitching done right there. You will find a notch here on the pattern. Mine is marked right there with blue. I can see it. That is where we're going to sew up to and stop precisely there. We're not going to sew this bottom end. This is going to be left open and that will be finished later. This is why we didn't want to understitch all the way, because we want all this edge to be clean so we can sew directly from here down. That is a tiny little mark I have where I'm going to stop precisely. It's really important to be precise there. And then I'll just repeat this on the other side, right up to that mark. Now when we flip this out over to this side, we're going to have the button loop coming right out of this corner. I'll still tidy that corner up, but that is the idea. These centers here, this one with the other side, are just going to meet in the middle. They're not going to overlap. Okay, here are my yokes. Everything's sewn, the neckline, it's all flipped and pressed. And now I have 2 layers of the back yoke right here. We see the interfaced and the non-interfaced. And here we have our back piece. It's curved to match this shape. This is slightly wider, so there are going to be a few gathers there. So I'm going to sandwich that in between the 2 layers using a burrito roll method. It's something I've shown a lot in the channel already, so I'm not going to film that. The only difference is that with other yokes, it's straight. This is slightly curved, but the technique will be the same. These are the center front pieces there. There you can see the button loop. And remember, we had sewn only from one mark up to the top right there, and this rest is left open like this. So now what we need to do is place these right sides together, the interfaced ones right sides together, and sew from the bottom up to where the seam is right there. And then the same on this non-interfaced side. So we're going to end up with a little intersection of seams there. Here are these center fronts that we need to sew now. Remember, we had sewn on this part partially up to there when we were doing the neckline. So now we are going to pick up and sew these 2 interfaced ones together from right there where that seam stopped all the way down, and then the same on this non-interface side. And as you see, there's going to be like an intersection of seams, a little bit fiddly. Okay, these two seams are sewn. Now we need to press them open. These also, you don't need to finish them because these are all going to be hidden inside. What we did here is create a little slit opening on the top. This was done in a first step, and now on this second step we finished from here down like that. So there's going to be a little button and we're going to have a little open area there. So I'll just go tidy this up, and then what we can do to this yoke piece is align all the raw edges and baste them together, because from now on this will just act like one piece. This is the front pattern piece. You can see that there is this piece that's missing. It's going to be filled in with all that's over there. I'll show you that in a second. Up there it's wide, and I've got a double row of gathering stitches, just 2 rows that are parallel with a long stitch length, because that's going to be gathered in later. So that's already done. And I'll show you what's going on here in these corners. Okay, on the other side you can see this is the area where I had interfaced. You'd seen that before, and I've just done a stay stitch, 1/2 inch seam allowance there and there, about an inch that way, about an inch this way on both these corners, because this is an area that we're going to snip into there, into that little corner on both sides. These are the yoke pieces, both layers together. I have basted them together on these edges right there so they act like one piece, but you can see there's 2 here. The one you see on the outside is the interface side, and here in this corner the same thing is happening that over there where I've just shown you. You can see the stay stitching there and there, 1/2 inch seam allowance, same as on that side, because this is another corner that we're going to snip into there. Basically what needs to happen now, get the one that's going to be on the outside, the interface side, and put it right sides together here at the bottom like this, and this is going to go in between this area here. And this is where we're going to snip into the corner there, and we're going to be able to sew this one. And then in that corner over there is we're going to snip and then sew this area right there. So it'll be 4 corners there, there, and there, where we're going to snip and put all these 2 pieces together, and then we'll have a completed front. Okay, here I have the bottom of my front. You can see that's where I'd interfaced, and I've done my snip right there on both sides. What I've got here is the front yoke. Remember, the interface side is the one touching the front piece. So if I separate these here, you can see I have my interfaced layer touching this one right there. Now all I have to do is sew a little bit there, pivot, and then sew across, pivot again, and then sew a little bit up to there. All this other section, I'm going to do it in one go when I'm doing the pivot on this other side, but I just want to get this bottom bit out of the way. 1/2 inch seam allowance, just being careful here at this point to pivot right there on the edge. Okay, so from this side you can just see a little rectangle stitch, and we're going to look at the right side how it looks. There it looks nice, there's no pucker right there. And on this side also, that little corner is really neat. So 2 corners out of the way, and now it's the same up here. I've already snipped into there, and this is what's going to go in there. So what I'm going to do is get this and put them right sides together over here, and then this is the corner that I'll need to sew, and just align this right there and do the pivot the same as I did on the other ones. The only difference is I'm going to also just start right there, pivot, and then go down, pivot, and then catch up to where I'd already sewn right there. And then I'm going to leave this horizontal area till the very last because I need to gather that in. Here is that horizontal seam that you saw me do where I pivoted there and there. And then what I did now was just pivot and do the same thing over here. I did exactly the same thing that you saw me do down here. I did it up there. When I did this pivot, I sewed about 3/8 of an inch that way. And then I gathered this area, and then I completed that horizontal seam including the gathers right there. So you can see there's a corner there, also. Now I just have to repeat the same on this side. I have my snip done right there, as you can see. This is the longer area that needs to be gathered into there, and I'll just flip this, have it be right sides together, and it's the same thing. And basically this is the area that's going to take you the longest. Okay, this is the dress I made for my sister-in-law. I know it's a print. The fabric is so light I can barely feel the garment hanging on this hanger. It's so beautiful. And here you can see the round neckline, the button loop right there. It's just got one single button, and then you have that little bit that's open. This is the section that we sewed first in one step, did other things, and then came ahead and sewed the rest. So on that first step you were sewing these pieces together, one interfaced, one non-interfaced on both sides, and on the second step you were sewing both interfaced together, and the ones inside are the non-interfaced ones. So that's why you get a little intersection of seams right there that is super pretty. Front yoke comes from the arm side and then goes across, there are the gathers, and then goes all the way down to here where you have a corner there, it goes across there, it comes up here, and you have another corner, gathers, and this way. That is how the front comes together. So pretty. The back has this curved yoke that you can see right there. 2 layers also, burrito method. The only difference is that this yoke is a little bit curved, it's not straight, but it doesn't mean that it's any different in the sewing departments. Then the sleeve has a bit of gathers here on the sleeve cap, super easy to set in because you don't need to worry about not having gathers there because there are meant to be gathers. It is suggested that you hem your sleeve before doing the shirring, it's just going to be easier that way. And then you have 7 rows of shirring there. Each row is 1/4 of an inch apart. The way that you do the shirring is when you have the sleeve extended. So before sewing the seam of the sleeve, the seam, you have your sleeve there on the table extended. What I did was just mark on the right side of the fabric the first line of shirring. You see on the pattern piece all the lines there, 1/4 of an inch apart. But the only one that's really important is the first one, I think. You can sew that, and then all the other rows you can just guide yourself by the edge of your press-a-fort. That will be 1/4 of an inch. And that's how I was able to get all of these. After you do that, then you sew the seam there. Now, with each row of shirring, you need to leave long tails of thread and elastic, and you need to knot them all individually on both sides so that they don't start coming apart later. That took a little while to do. So that's how you do the sleeve, and the same with the skirt here. Where the mark was, I did the first line and I did my shirring on the round. On the pattern it shows that you do the front and the back separately and then you sew the side seams, which is also going to work. I just wanted to avoid the amount of knots I was going to do. So by doing it on the round, I just made sure my first line was really even all the way around. I marked it with a red friction pen. When I've pressed this, that has gone already, it's been erased. And then I chose an area of the back. That's where I started. My first row went all the way around, and then I just had one little knot to do per row of shirring. And that's how I went around and did 7 rows right there. Now when you look at this, it looks tiny, like it's not going to fit anyone, but it does really stretch nicely. Now I was limited in the fact that I'm using a super basic machine where I can't regulate stitch length. It's just got a generic 3.0 stitch length. I can't make it bigger or smaller than that. In my home, I can regulate that and play, so I couldn't really play to make this shirring any looser or tighter or anything. This is just the way it turned out. But fortunately it's fine, it fits my sister-in-law fine. She's happy with the shirring, she's not going to get any irritation on her skin, she's super happy with the style. I love how it looks on her. Mum also contributed with the hem at the bottom by hand, it just looks really nice that way. So let's see it on her, super pretty. This is my sister-in-law's Azores dress in a really lightweight poly crepe with black and white, super pretty. Hers is a straight size 4. The only thing I did was to add 2 inches of extra length so that it hits right above her knee. She is a little bit taller, so pretty, so flowy. Up closer you can see how the rows of shirring at the waist bring it in, and you have a bit of blousing going on. Up above you can see the beautiful neckline, how well it fits. So nice. You can see the gathers on the sleeve cap, the back yoke with all the gathers, and how the shirring also brings it in. It looks like you have a little bit of a ruffle there. The center front is really nice with that open area on the top with a single button loop, a super delicate feature. And you can see the front yoke, the gathers above the bust. Really delicate design, and I think she looks amazing. I'm really happy I got to make it for her. It's a really original design and she's really happy with it. Of course she deserves it, you know. I'm so happy I was able to make that for her. She deserves it. She's got it really rough right now with 3 little girls. She's always really tired and she's working really hard. She's a really good mom, and I was really happy to make something special for her. I made my version a lot different. I made it after the pattern test, so I always feel free to make some changes. I always knew I was not going to use the sleeves. I was going to make mine sleeveless, so that is one change. The other thing I did was make my top 3 inches longer than the cut line that you see. And as I was sewing, I decided I was just going to leave it nice and loose. It was just going to be a top that I put on. What I really wanted to keep was all this beautiful detail of the neckline, the yokes, the gathers, all of that. But I really can't tolerate the shirring. I know I can't tolerate the shirring. And that's why I made the test version for my sister-in-law, because I knew that she was fine with shirring, as I think 99% of people are. It's just something that I've used in the past, that the elastic has given me abrasions in this area here on the midriff. I know in that specific area I'm really sensitive. So mine has no shirring, has nothing. It is a flowy top. As I mentioned, there's quite a lot of ease. So the only thing I did was sew it. I knew it was going to fit. I tried it on, and then with a little friction pen, I marked where my waist actually was, where I put a pin when I tried it on. You can see a picture there, and I just brought it in at the waist a tad, brought it back out to the hips. I brought it in by about 1 inch, just at the waist and then back out, to give it just some really discreet shaping. So in the end, I took out about 4 inches of ease from the waist. So I'm still left with 10 inches, which is really nice. And sometimes you need looser tops like this for traveling or just to feel comfortable. Not everything has to be fitted. So I have a nice top that I can wear, and it has nothing, no details at the waist to bring it in like the original version. But pattern pieces are all the same. It's all the same. And I used my version to film all the sewing steps for you. So this is mine. It's a really bright tropical print, green, black and white and red. So lovely. I have the same neckline, a single button loop with a black button right there. This is the open area on the top, the center seam, all the same. The difference with mine is that mine is a C-cup. So I think there's a little bit more gathers here, but not that much. I was really careful with all the corners, took my time right there to get this lovely detail. And I know you would see this more with a solid. I just really wanted to make it in a print because, you know, at the back I have my curved yoke, slight gathers right here. They are very slight, you can barely see them. And then instead of having the shirring and things, I just have a flowy top. Now in my case, I know if I'd wanted to do the shirring, I would have had to add length just below this front yoke piece, like right there, to make my waist a little lower. I know if I'd done the shirring just as they were on the pattern, they would have come up sort of right under my bust and just a little longer in this area. But because I wasn't planning on doing that, then I didn't do it. So the shirring would have been around this area, and then I would have had that underneath. I have my sleeveless armhole. Look, I tried on the original armhole that would have the sleeve, and it was perfect. It was perfect down here. It was perfect everywhere. Had really good coverage, so I didn't need to adapt or check or change anything, make this narrower or nothing. It was all good. And I have satin bias tape that I use there to save some time. So pretty. Love it. Let's see this one on. Just simple styling with a black skirt. This is my Azores top from Itch to Stitch. I have a few changes to the original design. So I have a top instead of a dress. The top is an original version. It's just that mine doesn't have the shirring at the waist. Simple styling over a black skirt. Very easy, very simple, which just makes it nice and flowy. A nice loosely fitting top, easy to wear. It is 3 inches longer than the original top just because I'm taller and I also wanted it a little longer. Up closer, you can see that I've got a really nice amount of ease at the waist and hips. This is going to be so nice to wear when I just want to feel relaxed. Up closer you can see the neckline, how there is a little open slit on the top with a single button loop. I think it's really delicate, and from then the center front is closed. You have that beautiful front yoke piece, corner details there on the front piece and slight gathers on the bust. At the back there is a yoke with some gathers underneath the yoke, very slight also, and I'm just really happy with the details. The neckline is so pretty, although it is higher than what I usually wear. You can see a peep of skin through that little slit underneath the button loop, which is really pretty, different to what I usually sew. Finished my armholes with satin bias tape. I didn't make any change to the original armhole to make it sleeveless. There's no gaping, there's really good cover. My top is a size 14 to 16, but I could have gotten away with just a 14. I have a C cup here, and this is a top I'm gonna wear a lot. I love the colors, the tropical print make me super happy, and it was a very, very fun project to sew up. For sure, this is a pattern I want to make again. Next time I'll try to make it in a chiffon maybe. I didn't have many options here with me, but I think I'd like to make a dress for myself in chiffon. In that case, I would do the shirring at the waist, and because it's chiffon, I would have to wear a slip underneath anyway, and that way I'd be able to make the dress with the shirring. Anyway, I'm sure you like the shirring, a lot of people do. Don't be scared of it, it's not too hard. I will leave you a video that I've made in the past linked down below that shows you all the nitty-gritty of shirring, all the practicalities, how you wind the bobbin by hand, all those little things. If you want to see, I will leave that link down below. Don't forget that the Azores top and dress is 20% off through the 10th. For the first week, you can get it for a little bit less. I will leave you my affiliate link down below. Now I am getting ready to travel to my in-laws in a few days. Over there, I will not have a sewing machine. I will not be able to sew. So I'm cramming in, trying to get stuff done before I leave. I've had a really couple of intense days here, and I'm just planning to keep the channel with content and not just disappear for a couple of weeks, you know. But I'll be home soon in about 2 weeks, and I guess things will return slowly back to normal once I'm there. I will see you again very soon with more sewing. Bye.